And we're live.
Hey, good morning, crafters. Welcome to This Crafty Life Live, the show where two crafters spend an hour feeding their addiction to all things crafty, and they bring you along for the fun. Let me introduce our host to you today. Morning, crafters. Welcome to this. First of all, we have Maymay, and I know you guys will recognize Maymay from her YouTube channel, where she does everything from paper crafting to upcycle projects. She also designs a fun line of clear stamps, and she's got a stamp club that you can join and be a part of too. Now, for those of you that love to art journal, Maymay has a Facebook group where they art journal scripture. It's called Hide His Word in My Heart. And oh, did I mention to you that she is a self-proclaimed Periscope addict? I mean, she loves it. So everybody say hello to Maymay. Then up next we have Melody Lane. I'm sure that you recognize her from her YouTube channel as well, where she does some really amazing projects and tutorials and some really great hauls. She's also a Cricut product expert, and she designs her own line of digital papers. Now, Melody's also the queen of giveaways, and she hosts some really incredible giveaways on her Patreon page. So everybody say good morning to Melody. All right, let's see. What's up, Maymay?
Today's show is very exciting. We have got CHA news that Melody's going to fill us in on. We're going to be talking about that in just a second. And everybody knows, because I know you're all excited, we've heard from you. Today's guest is Lindsay Weirich, the Frugal Crafter. I know you're all just so excited. So be sure to ask your questions for Melody, myself, and Lindsay in the chat. Vince will be moderating that, and I want to make sure I tell you who Vince is. Vince is our incredible moderator. He's also my better half, so we want to make sure we welcome Vinny.
Hey, thanks, Maymay. And by the way, all the links to all the social media sites will be listed below in the description, so you can follow us around and see where we are, everything we do. I will be monitoring the chat, so any questions that you guys have, just post them there in the chat, and we'll get to those a little bit later in the show when we have our question and answer time. So, Maymay, let's get everything started.
Well, we're going to get started with talking to Melody. Melody, you are home, and you are not rested, correct?
Correct. I am exhausted, and my feet hurt. I recorded 33 videos in 3 days, and then I spent 3 days in Disneyland. And then I had a half a day of rest, I want to say, only because I chose not to go shopping and out to dinner. I stayed in the hotel room by myself while George and Ken from Crafts by Two went out with Nicole and Jake from the Sweet Stamp Shop. They went out shopping and went out for dinner, and they did bring me some food home. I'm like, I can't do it. I got to put my feet up and rest, because then we taught a class the next day also. So that was a full day from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m., and then we had to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning to fly back home, and we didn't get home until almost 7 o'clock last night.
You flew all day. Vince and I were trying to do the math.
All day.
When I heard you were home, we were like, my goodness, they literally flew the entire day away.
Yeah. We had to fly from LAX to JFK and then back to Rochester.
Wow.
And we sat on the plane at JFK for an hour before we got to take off.
The traveling is the worst part.
I'm a little tired. But I'm here with a smile on my face.
Well, to start things off about CHA, tell us basically what CHA is. A lot of people don't know, and so explain what it is real quick.
It's the Craft and Hobby Association, and you have to be a member of it to get in, or you have to be sponsored by a company or something like that. It's not open to the general public. And it's what all the big companies bring to the small scrapbook stores. Like, that's where the scrapbook stores go and see what's new to buy to bring the product to you. And so I wanted to be there to show all of you, all of the viewers, what's going to be new this year. So that's the reason I was there. I was there to take videos and share them with everybody. So
how many videos did you do?
I did 33 videos in 3 days, and I uploaded them within, I think I was done like within 4 days. Well, my second day at Disney, that night was the last night I uploaded the last video. But so we'd go to the show, and I would upload them onto my computer because I was going to try it for my phone. I was having problems. So many problems. And I recorded a 40-minute video of Tim Holtz, and I was right up front. It was the perfect video. I got all his new stuff. I uploaded. Well, it took me 2 hours to try to get it off my phone, and George helped me try to finally get it. We thought it was lost. We thought it wasn't coming off my phone. It was horrible. And so I finally got it, uploaded it, and shared it everywhere and said his new crayons. Well, for some reason, the video was only 14 minutes, and I advertised it shows his new crayons, and it stopped right before that. And I didn't even know it till I was at the show the next day. So I'm reading these comments, but it does have the crayons, and I look, it's only 14 minutes. So I waited for Tim Holtz again 20 minutes to get up right up front so I could get good video, and I said, Tim, my 40-minute video didn't work yesterday. Can you please show us the crayons and everything else again? So he did. He says, we'll start right here where your video left off. So thanks, Tim Holtz. So he was such a nice guy. I've been to Cha last year, and I saw him and stuff, but this time I was like right up close, and he's really a cool guy.
He seemed very personable. I really like that because I watched your video with him, and several other people had videos because the crayons are huge this year. Everybody's excited about those. So he seemed very personable. Tell me this. Of all the products you saw, and we know you craft different than I craft, what were some of your favorites that you saw?
I've never used perler beads, but this was the first thing I noticed. They have mini perler beads, and now I want to use them. I've never used the other ones. We have some here from George and Ken, but they have tiny ones, and they showed these incredible pictures that you can make with perler beads because they're so tiny. And perler beads are things that you melt the plastic together, and you can make keychains, and they were making portraits. That it was just incredible.
So tell what perler beads are. Kind of give a little overview.
They're these little plastic, they're like cylinders?
Yeah, like little tube beads?
Yeah. And then I don't know, I've never used them. I don't even know how.
If I remember, you might have seen this, but I think you have a little grid, and you put them out on the little grid, and then you heat them, right?
Yeah, you heat them with an iron, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. They're pretty cool.
Oh, George is saying they're perler mini beads is the name of them.
So minis, because the regular bead's not very big, the mini must be teeny tiny.
Yeah, they're really teeny, so you can get very detailed, like pictures. And I'm thinking you can put it on a picture or a portrait and put the colors right on top, like use a picture as a layout to put the beads on.
Yeah.
So you can get an exact, almost like paint by number.
Okay, so mini perler beads was number one. What's your next favorite thing you saw?
I don't know. There was so much. I want the new Misty now, the mini Misty.
What about the big one? What'd you think of the huge one?
Well, I have no use for it.
This is the 12-inch, right? It's 12 inches of actual, like it'll hold a 12-inch piece of paper, right?
Yeah, like you can do scrapbook papers.
That's cool. But the mini, do you remember the dimensions? I want to say it's 4 by 6. I could be wrong.
I think it's 5 by 7.
Okay, 5 by 7 makes more sense.
But it will do A2 size cards.
And I just did a review on the Misty, and I want to say I looked on her site, and she's already doing pre-orders for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she is.
And
it's a
she's
great
coming
tool.
on her show too.
Say that again?
She's coming on her show too, right?
Yeah, she is. She sure is. And we'll have all that. By the way, if you're watching today and you're wondering, we have all of our guests listed over on our Facebook group. That's linked below as well. It's ThisCraftyLifeLIVE on Facebook, so you'll be able to see what's coming and all that good stuff. All right, so CHA, did you meet any people you were super excited to meet? Besides Tim, we know you were freaking out about meeting Tim.
Well, I also like his crayons, and and I want to play with those. And then Diane Reevely, I love her. She does the Dilutions paints, and she has new colors, and she has these misting sprays that are cool. So I just want everything. And Diane, I also asked her to be on our show, and she's so sweet. She'd love to be on our show. So today or tomorrow, I'm going to email her assistant and get her scheduled to be on our show.
Did you see Ken?
Ken Oliver, yes. I did 2 videos of him. He was so nice. He's so much fun, too. He's got new products out, too. He's got the metallic, liquid metallic. I forgot what it's called. But I got video of that. That's in 2 videos. But they're really, really cool. You can use them with the color burst, and then you just use a few drops of the metallic, and it really makes it look like metallic on your paper. So I'm really excited about those.
I'm sure you've done this, but I'm assuming there's a playlist on your channel with all these videos, so you could just click and watch them all.
Yes, there is a playlist of the CHA 2016, so you can watch them all.
And we'll make sure we link, and well, Melody's channel is linked below, but she's Melody Lane on YouTube. So how did your class go? You did a class with Sweet Stamp Shop, Nicole, and Craft by Two. How did that go?
That was awesome. We did a lot of giveaways. Nicole did a extremely well Copic class. So she taught all about the Copics and how to color with them, and she's really good at that. I need to attend another one for that. And then we showed, a lot of them were planners and people that aren't used to totally crafting. So we taught them how to use the Cricut with planning stickers and how to make a card also. Easy cards where you don't need a Cricut. We gave them some sketches of different cards that they could use just with paper and scissors and how to do some simple things.
It sounds like you had an amazing time.
Yes. It was a lot of fun.
You going again next year?
Yes. Next year, though, it's in Arizona, so I don't have to fly all the way to California.
That'll be nice, but you won't be at Disney World.
No.
Was it World? Is it World or Land?
That's Disneyland. World is in Florida.
I cannot keep up. So, Vinny, do we have any questions in our chat today?
We've just had one. Someone asked about the Zig brush markers. The question was, if you can't buy all of them at once, what colors do you advise to start with if you can when you're buying those?
That's a good question. Now, I'm not sure. Do Zigs come in? You can buy individual Zigs, can't you? You can. Lindsay's shaking her head yes. I'm going to the pro on that one.
I haven't used those.
Let Lindsay answer this question. This is probably perfect for her.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Really, your probably best bet would be to get the largest set you can afford comfortably, because that with the smaller sets, they usually contain the most basic colors, and with a watercolor marker like the Zigs, they're very easy to blend out. So if you have that like fuchsia, you can easily take either a water-based blending marker or a water brush or just a damp paintbrush, and you can pull that color out. You can also use like a ceramic tile and scribble out your colors. If you have the bright colors on a ceramic tile, and then just pick it up with water and transfer it over to your image, so you have a lot more versatility. They're very different than Copics or any other alcohol marker where you really need that broad spectrum of colors. You can do a lot with like the brighter colors with the Zigs. So I would get like that set of 12 or set of 24. I have the set of 24, and quite frankly, it does pretty much everything I want it to do. I mean, I would love the set of 60, but, you know, I really don't feel like I need it. So I think I would get the largest set and maybe a couple extra skin tones or neutrals or something. But, you know, I think you get a better deal per marker if you can get a set. So I think I would stick with your basic brights, maybe like a light peach color and a few browns for your skin tones. And I think you'd be pretty well set because they mix and blend so well.
I agree with Lindsay that we're going to learn so much from her today. The thing that I always look at when I'm purchasing individuals of any colors is I look at my style for one thing. Like I'm not a pastel, I don't do a lot of pastel colors, and I really don't do a lot of flesh coloring. So I would probably lean toward the colors that I'm drawn to. So I would get some brighter colors, some reds and reds and yellows and things that are kind of my style. So think about it like that too. If you have kind of a, I don't know, if you're like me, you kind of lean to a color family. Not everybody does that, but I'm big about that. So think about that too and save yourself some money. And don't buy the ones if you're not drawn to pastel pink, you're probably not going to use it. So maybe save some money that way if you're buying them individually. That's just how I would do it. Anything else, Vinny?
Well, there's one other question for Lindsay if you want me to go ahead and ask it now.
Let's go ahead and introduce Lindsay. Matter of fact, Mel, I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and let's meet Lindsay.
Okay, our special guest today is Lindsay Weirich. Did I say that right?
You did! Yay!
She's also known as the Frugal Crafter. She has 700 painting and crafting tutorials on YouTube with over 204,000 subscribers. I'm so jealous.
It's actually almost 1,300 videos now. It's crazy. Yeah, over 1,000.
And she does tutorials daily, correct? You
Yes.
have videos on daily. So welcome, Lindsay, to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I am super excited to be here.
Cool. Well, we were so excited to have you. How long have you been doing YouTube videos?
6 years, almost 6. In March, it'll be 6 years.
And have you always been doing them every day?
No, this was about, I've been doing daily for about 2 years now. I always have ideas, I'm always making stuff, so I decided, I used to do a lot more editing and try to polish them a lot more, and now I thought, it's really more important to get the content out there, and the more you do, the better you get, the less you flub up, and if you do flub it up, the less you care, and you can be pretty prolific that way. I mean, I'd much rather spend my time creating than editing or posting about it on social media. I'd rather just make the videos and post them up there and hope they do well and go on and make another video. So,
well, you're doing great at it.
Thanks.
What inspired you to start doing videos?
Well, I was in radio before. I trained as a broadcaster and specializing in radio, and I did some TV work, and then I opened up an art studio teaching art, and that was my passion. I loved teaching people. When I had my first child, I brought him to work with me every day. I had parents of some of my students watch him while I was teaching classes, and then I got pregnant with twins, and I realized that I couldn't do it all at once. I couldn't run this full-time art studio with 3 kids with me. I didn't want to put them in daycare. That's a decision my husband and I made well before we had children, that we never wanted to put them in daycare, that I would stay home with them. And I wanted a way to be able to still continue to teach and create while I was home with my kids. And so I started a blog, and I started sending my work out to any magazine I thought that might be interested in it, and kind of went from there. After having the blog for 3 years, I wanted to experiment with video. I couldn't post videos directly to my blog using the free program, and since I'm so frugal, I didn't want to pay, so I'm like, well, what's this YouTube thing? And I'd always been a little afraid to look at YouTube because I'm like, I figured that's just Pandora's box. Anybody could post anything here. This is just going to be a free-for-all. And there weren't many crafters out there yet, so I'm like, you know what, it's free, I'm going to try it, and I just embedded all those videos into my blog and really didn't pay much attention to YouTube as a standalone thing, but quickly it started to kind of overtake. Like more people were watching directly on YouTube than were watching through my blog, and now they just fit together so well, and it's really fun. It's fun to be able to reach so many people and to have this almost like huge global classroom. And I love that people can watch the videos for free, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful when your customers don't have to pay you for the stuff they get. It's just been so much fun.
Great. What is your favorite craft to do?
I would probably say watercolor painting. I don't know if you consider that a craft, but yeah, I consider it all. All craft, all art, all craft in the same basket. I really like watercolor painting.
And what is your best frugal find?
Well, I got this record cabinet, like the big records we used to play for music. If you guys remember those.
Yeah.
Well, I was driving by a junk shop one day, and I saw it sitting outside, and I knew right what it was. And records are 12 by 12, the same size as cardstock. And I pulled in, and it was $10, and I grabbed it, and my husband painted it for me, so to buffer from all the acid and stuff. And it fits so much cardstock. I have all my solid cardstock in it, and it's tall. It's probably like 4 feet tall by, I would say, 1.5 feet. Maybe 2 feet wide, and that was my best frugal find. $10 for an awesome paper storage.
That's cool. And then we have a question from one of our viewers from our Facebook group. This is from Judy K. Hurst Humphrey. I have seen your craft room tour. How do you not lose track of what you have?
Believe it or not, I'm actually pretty organized in my craft room because I'm here working every day. I'm not so organized in the rest of my house, but one thing that really helps me, because I have so much stuff, is storing like with like. So all my buttons are together, all my embellishments are together, all my solid color papers are together, all my pattern color papers are together, all my stamps are together, and within that collection they're grouped by theme. So it's basically just making sure when you add something new, you're putting it in the appropriate place. Otherwise it's chaos, because yes, I do have a lot of stuff to keep track of. The only exception is if I have certain clients that I'll keep their products segregated, because I will want to only use from their products when I'm doing videos for them. So.
Cool. Vince, do we have some questions from the viewers?
We do. Let's see. Lindsay, what advice do you have for those who feel that they can't draw?
I think you need to try it. And one tip that I love to give to beginners is to go to the hardware store, get a piece of plexiglass, which is just like a clear sheet of plastic, kind of like glass, but it's plastic so you won't cut yourself. And hold it up, take a marker, like a Crayola marker or a dry erase marker, and just hold your head still and draw what you see through the glass. Wipe it off. Go somewhere else, do it again. This act of tracing is actually training your brain to see what's actually there and not what you think is there. Because a lot of times you say draw a person, and they draw an oval, and they draw 2 eyes on the top of the oval, they draw a nose right in the middle, and they draw a mouth at the bottom. Well, if you look at my face, my eyes are in the middle of my oval head, right? They're right in the middle. But your brain says your eyes are at the top of your head. So you need to learn to draw what's actually there instead of what your brain tells you is there. So taking a piece of plastic, just drawing what you see, lay it over pictures you print out from the internet even, and just draw what you see. That tracing is going to force your brain to see what's really there. And then when you take up that piece of plastic and you lay it onto a piece of white paper and you see that's what you drew, you're gonna it'll click. It might take a little while, but it will click that you need to trust what your eyes see and not what your brain thinks you see.
That's great advice.
Let's see. Another question for you were what's a good watercolor starter kit for a beginner? And part 2, what brushes do you recommend?
Well, luckily, in this day and age, there are so many really good sets out there, and there are good sets at many different price points. A beginner watercolor brand I recommend is, and you can find these at many places, it's a Cotman, which is made by Winsor & Newton, who has really expensive artist quality paints, but their student quality paints are very nice. So the Cotman line by Winsor & Newton is very reliable, and it's easy to find. Almost anyone can find it, either ordering online or in their local art supply store. And there's a little tiny kit that's got 12 pans of color, and I think it retails for about $20 to $24, and it has a tiny little brush in it. So with that, if you add like a number 10 round and a 1/2-inch flat, and then get some good quality 140-pound watercolor paper, I recommend buying it in a block, and that just means that you've got a pad of paper, but it's glued on all 4 sides so it doesn't warp and buckle on you. And I would get like a Strathmore 400 series, which is which you can find at any craft store pretty much. It's got the brown label, not the yellow, or Canson Montville. There's a very reliable, solid papers to choose, and they're not that expensive. You want to kind of balance the not making your supplies too precious that you'll actually use them, but have them high enough quality that you'll get reliable results every time you go to paint, because sometimes you go with the cheapest and it's a false economy because the paper will peel up and then you think you've done something wrong when it's not you, it's the paper. Or you go and you buy stuff that's so expensive that yes, it's gorgeous, but you're too afraid to use it because it's too precious and you're afraid of wasting it. So I try to find something where you can strike that happy medium, so it's cheap enough that you'll actually use it, but the quality's good enough that you can get reliable results every time you go. And I don't say perfect results, I say reliable, so that you know when you're practicing what you're doing, you can start to expect the results you're going to get when you as you go along.
And then we had one other question, and this was a fairly common question, but with you doing a video every day, how do you keep coming up with such great ideas and projects to do?
Well, creativity is like exercise. If you got to use it or lose it. So, like, if you go to the gym every day and you stay fit, then you can go skiing, you can go biking, you can go rollerblading. But if you decide that, well, I'm not going to go to the gym, but I want to go rollerblading, you put those rollerblades on, you're in for a big surprise when you get like quarter of a mile down the road and you can't pedal yourself back home. So it's the same thing with creativity. The more you do, the more ideas you come up with. And that's why I do daily videos, because I always come up with other ideas when I'm making projects. I think, wouldn't that be cool if I did that? Or I just see something and then I write it down in my planner thinking, oh, I want to try to, I'll see like a pattern on a fabric at Target and I'm like, oh, I could stamp something like that and do this or do that. So I just write those ideas down, so whenever I have time to craft and I feel like, oh, I don't know what I want to make, I can look in my book and I can just pick an idea, kind of like I could just point at the page and do whatever idea is there. So it's just like any other muscle, you got to use it or lose it.
Okay, a couple of questions about paper. Which paper do you prefer for using watercolor? And which paper do you prefer for colored pencils?
Okay, there's lots of really great choices out there. My personal favorite for watercolor paper is Arches. It's not cheap, so I was lucky. I bought some really big packs of it probably about 15 years ago when there was a really great deal at Jerry's Artorama. And so I'm still using that stash, but it is very expensive to rebuy, so it does kind of make me a little stingy with it. I like Strathmore 400 series because that is fairly economical and you get reliable results, and I like Clanton Montville because, again, economical, reliable results. Yupo is a really fun paper. It's more of like a novelty paper, though, because it's a plastic sheet, but it takes watercolors and alcohol inks really well. It's fun. It's kind of like a fun little crafty fling to do. It's probably not what you want to work on every day, but it's really fun. For colored pencils, I really like, and I like this for pastels too because it's such a versatile paper. It's called Canson Me Tints, and it's spelled M-I-T-I-N-T-E-S, and you can get it in pads or by full large sheets, and it's fairly economical. One side is kind of rough and one side is smooth, so depending on how you like to work, you have both options. So that would be my solid choice for a colored pencil paper. But I've used cardstock and got really good results, so don't feel like you have to go search for the perfect paper. Try what you have. I do a lot of framing, so I have mat board scraps. Those are fantastic for colored pencil, watercolor pencil, pastel. I mean, look around and see what you have first. That paper you use to scrapbook a layout may be perfect for pastel. So there's a lot of really great stuff out there.
Okay, what about when you're using alcohol markers? Is it any different?
Yeah, I really like the Nina Solar White Classic Crest, and Nina also makes paper for like Target and Walmart, so you have to, and those papers aren't quite as good for markers. They're more of like an all-purpose paper, so that you could use them in like an inkjet printer or a laser printer. They're just very all-purpose. Where like the Nina Classic Crest has a really hard surface. The ink blends well on it, but it doesn't feather. So that's kind of the hard thing, to get it to blend but not feather. It needs to almost puddle on the surface a bit. I also just tried the Winsor & Newton marker paper, which worked really well, but it's really thin, so I'd much rather have a thicker cardstock. Gina K Stamper Select is it's Gina K Pure Luxury, and that is fantastic for alcohol markers, and it's really thick and it doesn't bleed through, but it does take a lot more ink, it seems like, when you're coloring with that, but that's It's a beautiful paper. And I know you had Gina on like a couple weeks ago. I caught part of her interview. That was really fun. And I also like Paper Tray Ink Stampers Select cardstock because that's got a little tooth. The markers blend really well on it, but then you can overlay colored pencils. So if you don't have a really big marker selection, you can put your colored pencils on top and get those beautiful transitions that can be really tricky to get with just your alcohol markers.
Now, Lindsay has a demo for us today, so we want to let her get into her demo, and after her demo, we'll have plenty more time for questions, so just hang on to those questions for us, Vinny, because she has got a cool project for us.
And if you have any questions while we're working, please feel free to ask them, and Vinny can relay them to me. So this is what we're going to make. I have to remember I'm working upside down today. We're going to do this mixed media card. So of course you can use any of these techniques I'm going to show you in your scrapbook pages or art journal. It'll work really great. The stamps I'm using are from Lost Coast Designs, and these are the butterflies. Try to get the glare off. And then what I did, because these are brand new and I haven't had a chance to mount them, I just used a glue stick and I stuck them onto my clear block here. And a frugal tip, I went to the hardware store and I bought a sheet of 1/4-inch plexiglass. It was 16 by 20, and my husband cut it down into these different sizes for me with the table saw. And so I got like 100 blocks for you know, I think that the sheet was like $15, so it was a really great bargain. Oh, and this card that I just showed you, this is made on one of those, a Strathmore greeting card, so I had to be careful not to get the back all messed up, but I'll be doing the demo on just a plain piece of watercolor paper. And if you just use one sheet of watercolor paper instead of a folded card, you don't have so much to worry about keeping clean. All right, so we're going to start by inking up our stamp, and I'm using archival ink because it's waterproof. You just want to make sure that it's nice and shiny. And I actually have all my stuff propped up on a box, so it would be fairly close up when we're working here. So hopefully everything is nice and crisp and in focus. Now if you get ink on the block like I did there, you simply want to just take a paper towel or a baby wipe and wipe off that excess. That way you don't get it on your paper. But I got to tell you, the great thing about doing a mixed media technique is that any ink smudges is just an opportunity for embellishment or doing something different. It's like a happy accident, just like Bob Ross would say, so don't worry about that. Now hopefully I don't smudge this because I'm working at a different angle than I normally do, but I'm going to put my paper right on top. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is a cold press paper. And cold press means that it's got a little texture to it. So if you think of watercolor paper, think of like ironing something. If you ironed a shirt with a cold iron, it wouldn't get very smooth. Right? So cold press paper is not very smooth. Hot press paper is like a hot iron has run over it, so it would be much smoother. Okay, so if you're ever in doubt and you're ordering online, you can't touch the paper. You're like, do I want cold or hot? Well, if you're a stamper, you're probably going to want a hot press. Cold press will resist wrinkling a little bit better, so that's why I'm using this, because we are going to do a pretty wet technique on here. Now I'm going to hit this with a heat gun for a second to set the ink. I hope that's not too loud for you guys.
No, it's okay.
Oh, good. Okay, that should do it. Now we're going to do a little resist, and we are going to use my favorite products, and this is Mod Podge, but you can use any sort of white PVA glue. It doesn't have to be Mod Podge. And I'm just going to grab a stencil here. And this one is by Crafter's Workshop. I'm not sure of the name of it. And I'm just going to actually pour a little bit of my Mod Podge into my lid here so I can kind of have a little bit to, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Don't pour that much. You probably can't see that. Probably just looks white, but I got a lot. Way too much. Live, folks! And I'm just going to randomly dab this around. You can go over your stamped image. I'm not going to do it all over the place. I just want to kind of get some awesome texture there.
So, Lindsay, do you ever make your own Mod Podge with that recipe I see floating around, and how do you feel about that versus Mod Podge?
I'm very anti-homemade Mod Podge, I gotta tell you. Are you talking about the Mod Podge, the Elmer's Glue plus water, or the
yeah, it's like 2 parts glue, 1 part water, or something like that.
That will make a decoupage medium for sure, but it's not really comparable to Mod Podge. It's just a thin glue.
I agree 100%, but I hear people say that it's Mod Podge, and I always want to go, no, it's not.
No, it's not. False economy, folks. I really, I mean, you can decoupage with that, absolutely, but it's not going to be that thick, gelatinous, slow-drying Mod Podge. So I don't know if you probably can't really see that, but basically what I've done here is put that texture down there, and it's going to make a resist where my ink isn't going to stick so well to that, and that's what I want. So I've got one already done to this point, and I've just clipped it onto my little board here so it won't run. And now I am going to just grab my water, and I am going to paint water any place I'm going to want my watercolor powder to go, because I'm going to be using some watercolor powder today. And if you're impatient, you can blast your card with a heat tool or a hair dryer or something. Now you could use watercolor paints, you can use watercolor pencils or crayons, whatever you have, but I know the powders are super popular and a lot of companies are coming out with them, so I thought this would be kind of a fun chance to use those in a project.
So basically you use the Mod Podge as a resist.
Exactly.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Oh yeah, it works fantastic. And in a thin layer like that, it doesn't tend to be sticky. You know, sometimes if you use Mod Podge, like in your art journal, and then you close the page, and then you just kind of hear it, you hear that kind of cracking noise when you go to open your book again. It's not really enough to really make it sticky here. And I'm using the glossy Mod Podge just for a little bit extra resist there, because it's not going to be a super bright resist. It's not going to be like a embossing powder resist. Okay, so now I've got that wet, and I am going to use some powders here. These are the Nuance powders by Magenta, and they are also available at the same place the stamps are, Lost Coast Designs. And you can mention the Frugal Crafter to save 15%. I hope that's okay to say.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I love this part. This is where you get to see the bloom. I love it.
Yes, yes. And then I think I want a little bit of this purpley color in there. And so when you get these, you have to poke a hole in the top. You don't want to open the container, because if you open that container, the powder's going to go everywhere, and you're going to have a mess. So just use your pokey tool or a thumbtack to poke a hole in the top. Now I want to kind of have like a motif where this purple color kind of goes through the card. So what I'm doing is just kind of guiding some of that around with a wet paintbrush. Now I like to use a wet paintbrush and water as opposed to a water brush for this, because the colors are so intense that it could want to suck into the reservoir of a water brush. You totally could. You're just going to be probably needing to refill your water brush, because you'll have to squeeze out the extra so often. And if you want your colors to move more, you can spray it. I just want to keep the butterflies fairly clean, so that's why I don't want to do that. And you can always...
I think this is interesting, because I think a lot of people think with these powders and these bursts of color, you can't really control them very well. But it looks to me like you're able to control them with the amount of water and not spraying, correct?
Right, right. And sometimes, like, if I have a little area where I don't have anything I want to protect, I'll give it just a quick little spritz, and that will give me, you know, that burst area. Like, I think I'll just really wet that area and just sprinkle in a little bit more. I love that blue. And you get a lot of control with the little holes on there. A ton doesn't come out at once. I love the applicators on the Ken Oliver color bursts, but it overshoots a lot, and then when you go to clean your desk when you're done, you end up with your rag is just covered with paint, and I think, oh, look at all that I wasted, you know. And this way, it's only going on my paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kim asked, is there a difference between these that you're using and the color burst, or?
You know, I really think they're all about the same. I wouldn't, if you had one brand, I wouldn't necessarily go by the other unless you wanted to just try a color you don't have already. So this is what we have at this stage, and I've got that already done here in another one, so I'm going to switch that out. So here's one that's all dry. And then what you might want to do here at this stage is take a baby wipe, and you can wipe if you want. Like, this is what the resist will kind of look like with the ink on top of it. If you feel like you want to have a little bit more contrast and have your resist a little bit brighter, you can go in and wipe some of that off. But it's up to you. I just find if I wrap the baby wipe around my finger, or you could use a Q-tip even, and then I just go in, I can kind of just hit the resist areas and not bother the ink that's just on the paper too much. And another way you can... Oh, thanks! Another way you can use the product is to tap some into a palette. And I'm going to use a little yellow and a little bit of pink. And if you are using the Clanton Olivers, just go really gentle when you squirt it, because a lot will come out. And like I said, I think they're all wonderful products. The Brusho, the Color Burst, the Nuance, it just depends on what you get the best deal on and what has the colors that you want. And I'm going to go in and I'm not wetting the butterflies first. I'm just going to go in and give it some color.
Yeah, Kim is saying, didn't Ken say to tap the bottles and not poof? He did. At Cha, I was recording him. He was letting other people use them and watching over them, and he's like, no, don't poof, you just tap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because it is kind of fun if you have like a stencil and you just poof it across.
Right. Yeah, because I was poofing too.
Yeah. Probably poof your own bottles if you want. Just don't poof his. They've got to last him for all the demos, probably. He probably doesn't want to wear all of his color bursts.
Yeah, he even did something where he blew on them, didn't he, Melody? What was it he said? Oh, he got some of the product off the page because there was too much on the page? Is that what that was?
Somebody had put too much on their page and she was afraid to get it wet, it would be too much color. So he asked her to stand back, and then so he just blew over the page to get it off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the pigment here, when I'm using with the brush, it really reminds me of like the Zig markers, and as soon as mine go dry, I'm going to see if I can refill them with my pigment here. I'm going to have to let you guys know how it goes, because I think they remind me so much. Like when I go back in and I wet an area and I dried the colors together, you'd think they'd stain because they're so vivid, but look, they blend really well. So
yeah,
I think that I really think we could. Disclaimer: I'm not telling you to go ruin your zigs or not buy new zigs or anything, because they are fantastic. But I like to learn how to refill things.
Yeah,
that's a brilliant idea, because you get a lot of that powder, and that's very economical.
Yeah, and it's so concentrated that, I mean, you're not going to make a dent. It's like I still have my Pearlex powders from, probably 15 years ago, and I use them frequently. And I mean, it's like you're never going to get through those pots of color. All right, so that's wet, and I'm just going to switch it out for a dry one here. See them all. This is where my TV background comes in, having that switching it out. And we're going to do a little stenciling on top. So if you're like me and you have like a bazillion stencils, and what I do, I have a little tip here. I have bigger stencils too, but I take all my small ones and I just put them in an envelope, because I know if I'm like going to go to a friend's house and craft, my smaller stencils are so much more versatile. Or if I'm going to jelly print or something, I can grab that little packet and not have to deal with all my other stencils. And I'm just going to use some cheap, like this was 25 cents a bottle, black acrylic craft paint, and I'm just going to squirt a little bit on my little palette here. And we're going to pounce the paint through the stencil using a makeup wedge. And you can get a pack of like 20 of these at the dollar store.
I love all the medias you're mixing together. So far you've got ink, you've got powders, now we're doing some paint. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm going to grab actually this is scrap paper to put under there, just so I don't make a big mess. And I'll put a paper towel under there. Just want to try to, I don't want to have to try to switch out my paper with all the stuff I have under there right now.
Lindsay, what brand of powders are you using?
These are the Nuance. They're a product that is fairly new from the company Magenta, and if you're in Canada, you probably want to grab them from Magenta. If you're in the States, you can grab them from Lost Coast Designs and save 15% with the code the Frugal Crafter. Just mention it in the comments and they'll refund the money or deduct it before they run your card. They're new to me. I just tried them for the first time yesterday and they're fantastic. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using, this is a little stencil that I made using, I got one of those Teresa Collins stamp makers a few years ago, and this is just, I use a little stencil kit to make this. And I'm not going to hit everywhere. I'm just going to try to add some pattern here and there, but I am lining it up each time just so it kind of has a nice flow to it. I'm trying to keep my fingers kind of clean, but it's kind of impossible.
Yeah, that's always hard for me.
Yeah, I don't even bother with like pretty nails or anything because I just can't keep it. And I love it when you start to get the patterns overlaying, when you get like the you start to get this quatrefoil over the swirl. And I think I just set my hand on the other side of the card, so it's working upside down. I used to work upside down all the time before I figured out how to fix my camera so it could be recording right side up, and now so I'm completely out of practice, so I've got ink all over my hands already. And if anybody has any questions, just chime right in. I don't want to bore anybody with my stenciling.
Well, the good news is you're answering a lot of people's questions just as you keep talking, so it's almost like you're reading their mind.
Oh, great, Vinny. Thank you. I got a really great tip. I was watching a video from Carolyn Doobie, who's an art journaler, and she was using her sponges, and I always just throw mine away if they get dry paint in them, and I forget to clean them, and she just snipped off the end, and I was like, that's brilliant. So that's what I did after I was done with my black one last night. I snipped off the dried paint, and I could use this today. So I was just like, oh, I got to remember to share that tip and to credit Carolyn, because that was awesome. So I'm happy with this amount of stenciling. And then what I'm going to do is I am just going to use my sponge, and I am going to ink the edges. Just like you would with an ink pad. If you need me to like speed things along, just let me know.
I'm enjoying watching this so much. It's just like watching one of your videos. I get sucked in.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so this won't take any time to dry because acrylic paint and such a thin veil like that dries really, really quickly. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share some tips. I'm going to show you some things that I prepared for the rest of the card. Now, I don't have a ton of dyes, which might surprise people. They may think that I have tons because I have so many supplies, but physical dyes are not something I have a lot of. But the ones I do have, I use quite a bit. So what I did was I took some white cardstock and I cut some old just flower and kind of embellishment shapes from some old Cuttlebug dyes that I had. I guess they're Cuttlebug brand, and then I wanted to color them. So what I did was I save like all these packages that come with like embossing folders or other craft supplies in them because they make really excellent palettes. But the thing I realized last night while I was working was that I could put my white cardstock in here, sprinkle on my powder, give it a spritz of like shimmer spray, close it up, and then smoosh it. And I was able to color all these really well without getting my hands dirty, and then I could just leave them in here and let them dry overnight. So there's a little tip for you. Keep these. I mean, you don't have to keep 50 of them, but keep a few that you can keep reusing because they're super handy. And I use them all the time. I did the same thing here with these. And now we are going to kind of build our embellishments while our other stuff is drying. So I'm just going to grab out a few flower things that I die cut. And same goes for your punches. You bought them, you paid money for them, you might as well use them. They're not going to go out of style, especially stuff like flowers and leaves. I mean, those are going to be my leaves. They're not really leaves, but I think they look enough like leaves that I can use them. And then these cute little, like, sometimes you get these just other little doodads and cute things that come with your dyes, and I like to take those and then like maybe on the inside of the card decorate it a bit, like maybe take that and add one of these little die cut butterflies because this is a butterfly card, so that's cute, and just kind of overlay that, put that in the corner on the inside of the card, and then let me turn it right side up so you can see it. And wait a minute, I'll just do it right in this card, and I can show you that. Hopefully, I'm just thinking I buried my glue gun over there somewhere. Like you could put that just on the inside of your card like that, and then you've got just a sweet little decoration. It's you cut it out with everything else. It's already bought and paid for, so why not use it? It's better than tossing it away or putting it in a drawer and forgetting about it. All right, so what I like to do is, did somebody have a question?
I was going to ask you, I noticed the ribbon on that other card.
Yeah.
You're going to do the ribbon and talk about your giveaway? Because I know people are excited about that too.
Yes, I am. I totally am. But first, I am going to kind of crinkle up my my flowers and my little leafy bits, the things that will turn into leaves magically. And we love our distress ink pads, but any sort of like brownish, yellowish ink pad will do. I've got my wild honey ones right here. This is so weird to like film on this side of my craft room. And I'm going to set down my napkin again and ink up this stuff. And basically, I kind of have a rule, if I do it to one, I do it to more. And that way, everything ends up harmonious. Same thing, the same like philosophy when I paint. If I do it to one part of the painting, I do it to another part. If I use this color once, I use it again. I just keep repeating these elements. Repetition is an element of design. And once you get in the habit of doing that, you realize you can do a lot more with the supplies you have. You'll use your supplies a lot more, and your projects will start to look a lot more professional and polished. So what I'm going to do is just kind of randomly smush this ink pad onto my pieces, and they're going to catch the wrinkles and give that really beautiful mixed media kind of distress look. And my fingers are going to get a little dirty doing this, but I'm not really concerned about it. And I've got my hot glue gun all ready to go, of course. The cord's like under about 50 things though, so this might take a second to untangle everything. Oh my gosh, she's got like 5 wet paintings on top of this cord. Ah.
Any questions, Jenny, while she's getting that?
We did have a question. One of our viewers said that she inherited a lot of brushes. How do you tell the difference between the ones that are for like acrylic paint or for other medias?
You can generally kind of feel the brushes. For like oils, you'd have more of like a stiff hog hair. It'd feel kind of like almost look like a men's shaving brush, but have like stiffer white bristles. Acrylics tend to be, you can use those for acrylics to feel the bristles. If they have any oily residue, it's best not to use them for acrylics. Keep them for oils. If they're silky feeling but fairly firm, they're for acrylics generally. And if they're really soft, then they're for watercolors. Think of the viscosity of the paint you need to push around, and whether or not that's going to work. Well, you know what? I totally forgot to glue my leaves down, so I'm just going to yank this right up because there's no point fretting about things because it's mixed media. It'll look like you planned it. We're going to start over there. I'm going to reuse that part totally. And people are probably wondering who this joker is you got on your show this week. Look at that! Nobody knew. Nobody would even have known if I pay no attention to the...
Are you aware of a U.S.-based company that makes a matte or a chalk-based paint that's comparable to the paper artsy paints?
I've never used the paper artsy paints. There's a lot of companies that are doing chalk paints, though.
Yeah, I've never used paper artsy either, but wow, there's a lot of chalk paint out there now. But that might be a Google search.
Yeah, I've used the Martha Stewart home decor chalk and the folk art. Let's see, it's the Martha Stewart. What's it called? Vintage decor paint, I think, and then there's the folk art home decor chalk. I like the folk art home decor chalk a little bit better. But they come in big containers. I think if you just need a smaller container of it, I would just take a little plaster of Paris and mix it with your acrylic paint, and then you can get like enough for your mixed media journal. And I guess it would depend on what you're doing. But I haven't used the Viva.
You have a video on your channel using that, making chalk paint, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yep. Okay, so now the ribbon, and I got it right here. So what I did here, because these projects, I like to, like as you know, people mentioned it before, my craft room is chock-a-block full. So if something, even though these are little tiny pots of color, if it's going to be in my craft room, it has to earn its place. So I was trying to think, what else can I do with this stuff? So I grabbed some white seam binding, and this is just the Hug Snug seam binding. This is what it looks like. I have some in the, I think this is 3/8 inch, and then I've got some 1/4 inch. And I just put it in one of these little trays. I just wiped up whatever ink was left from whatever, and used the same colors that I was using for this, and I just dyed my seam binding so I could get that cool vintage look. Now, we mentioned the giveaway, and what I'm going to give away is a beautiful handcrafted, this is actually mine, which is probably, you know, it was the prototype, bow making tool, and I'm going to give away one of these. My husband makes these. We sell them in our shop, and they're super useful. And what I'm going to do is show you how to make a little bow on this. Now, of course, you could take a piece of wood and you could drill holes in it, and you could, you know, find dowels to fit and totally do that yourself. But these are pretty. And what I'm going to do is wrap this seam binding around probably about 3 or 4 full loops. Okay, you just want to make sure you count how many loops. Like, so here, if I was to tie this in the back, I have 4 loops on each side, so I'm going to get a 4-looped bow. And since this is vintage, just wrinkled seam binding, the bow maker actually helps pull out the wrinkles enough so you get a nice bow, but it also still does retain some of the cool mixed media look. You don't actually have to tie this in order to do the next step, but it might make it a little easier if you're fumbly like I am on live shows apparently. So I'm going to tie that, and then I'm going to take this other piece here, and because I wanted to have a contrasting band, and I am just going to tie this around. You want to be careful with seam binding because it can be, especially if it's an older seam binding, like a real vintage seam binding, it can be a little fragile, so just be careful that you don't pull it so tight that you rip it. And if you're working with it while it's wet, like you're impatient, like I was last night, it might rip. Don't ask me how I know that. And then we pop this off, yeah, and then just, you can fluff it now. I usually just wait till I fluff it, put it on the card to fluff it, so you get a cute little bow there. And where'd my card go? There we go. What I'm going to do is just take the green side and tie it around to the back. Now, actually, you could save some ribbon by just gluing down the ends on the back. Especially if you're going to mount this, because this is just a single panel, so that would probably be a little bit more, well, actually, let's do that. That'd be a little more frugal, and I am the frugal crafter at all. And I'll put a little, let me make sure I have that bow in the right place before I glue it down, because otherwise, yeah, we'll be in trouble. Let's put a little bit of glue. I really like hot glue for a lot of things. It's actually quite affordable when you think about the price of glue sticks and, you know, the price of some other glues. And I've just developed asbestos hands over the years, and apparently I just put my hands right on it. It doesn't even bother me. All right, and then I try to work off the spool so that I don't have very much waste, because I'll save this. I'll use this in a tag or another card, even though it's just a small space, and even though it's just a scrap and I have so much stuff, I still see no point whatsoever in wasting anything, especially when, you know, there are people that don't have any supplies, and you can make another card and send it to, you know, to somebody who would really appreciate it. Okay, now that that's on there, just fluff out your bows, your little loops. And it's so easy. And if you knew you were going to make a bunch of cards, like Christmas cards or something, you can make all your bows ahead of time and have them ready to go. One other little thing I want to add, and I'm looking for my, oh, here it is, my little jar of goodies. So if you ever go to like the craft store and you're in the floral department, because I think you should totally look everywhere, because if you're a scrapbooker and you only go down the scrapbook aisle, you're going to pay through the nose for everything. Take a look around. There used to be a product called Dewdrops, and they were in these tiny little jars, and they were basically these in different colors, and they cost like, I don't know, $12.50 a jar. No, probably not that much, but they were quite a bit. And I saw these at Michael's one day, and I was like, and this was like half a bag, this jar. I mean, I think I shared them with like everybody I know, and I still, this is always full. It's like they breed when I'm not looking, like sequins or something. And it's true. Have you ever bought sequins more than once in your life? I mean, have you ever? Never have to buy the same color again because they breed, I swear. And hopefully, where's my glue? Let's see. I'm just gonna. The glue I like to use for this is a couple different glues, either Glossy Accents or the new Stampin' Up! Glue is really good, or Jewel-It is really good because they all really adhere to plastic well. So I'm not using that right now because I can't reach it. I'm not. Oh, there it is. Wait a minute. Yes, I will. Found it. These little fine tip applicators are from a shop called Tilly's Bridge. I think you can probably see that. Maybe you can see that. I'm not sure, but it's a Zibbit store. And I think there are companies coming out with these now, so they might be easier to find. But what I'm going to do here is I am going to start putting down some little little drops. And what I want to do design-wise is I want to guide the viewer's eye through my picture, so I'm kind of making like a Z kind of formation through the picture with my things here. And always, if you're using any sort of fine tip applicator, make sure you replace the little needle. And I can't do that holding that so far away from my face because I can't see the little hole there. But you always want to replace your needle part so that it doesn't clog up on you. But that's a jewelette glue, which I use for like fabric and stuff. So it's nice to be able to have another use for it. But crystal accents, anything that will glue plastic, like sequins or anything, will work well for this. And then I just like to plop it down in there, and once it's set up a little bit, I can use my Copic markers or any other alcohol markers to change a color so that you have custom color. You only buy clear or white, and you can just alter it to whatever you want. So that's kind of how it looks at this point, and then once I use my markers on it, it'll have that cool color. But while that's drying, I have something else I can do. I'm going to use a Wink of Stella brush, and I'm going to give the wings of my butterflies a little bit of sparkle. And I'm not sure if I have to. I don't use this all that often, so I'm never sure if I need to squeeze it or not when I start. Does anybody know?
I typically don't have to squeeze them, but then again, if it sits, you know, you might have to. I love my Wink of Stella.
Yeah.
And it will pick up some of the color, so you might want to wipe it on like a scrap of paper when you're done, just to make sure that it doesn't transfer to a project where you're not intending it. So I can see that the tip is red, so I can just wipe that off.
While Lindsay's coloring, we want to mention that if you're interested in winning that beautiful bow tying little gadget made by her husband, we do a secret word. And so you'll want to collect our secret word today, and then after the show, there'll be a link below the video where you can go and enter a raffle copter giveaway that will be open for 24 hours for you guys to win the bow making tool. And Melody, what's our secret word?
Frugal.
The perfect word, right? Frugal. So write that down so you'll have it. And I want to tell you that while Lindsay was doing her Wink of Stella.
I feel like I'm on Pee-wee's Playhouse. Do you remember that when they used to say, "What's the secret word?"
Yeah.
And everybody would scream.
And please don't repeat the secret word in the comments. That happened during one of the videos, and I kept deleting all of the comments. That's not where you enter. You have to go to our blog and enter in the raffle copter. That's where it asks you for the secret word there.
Sometimes when you stamp an image, especially on watercolor paper where it tends to be a little rough, you might have your stamp skip. Or maybe after you're done doing all these lovely mixed media techniques, you've kind of diminished your stamping, like maybe it doesn't have the oomph that it did before. And I'm just using a simple, inexpensive black Sharpie to kind of go and make those butterflies pop a little bit more. There's also a lot of new water-based markers out that you can use without any odor. This is a Winsor & Newton one that's silver, and I'm just going to go in and add just a little bit of detail to some of these. And you can even, you could add a, little beeline behind them if you wanted to. It's completely up to you. Just don't be afraid when you go to do mixed media. Everything is okay. There's no rules. It's all good.
Well, we're about out of time for today's show. Vinny, were there any questions we wanted to make sure we fit in before we call it today?
We did have one question that everybody addressed to the three of you ladies, and that is, how do you declutter your stash?
Oh, well, I teach, so I will work my supplies that I have too much of into a lesson for my students, and that's how I declutter mainly.
I have friends I like to get. What, Melody?
I pretty much don't declutter. I like to use everything, and if I have a spot to stick something, I'll try to save my scraps and stuff.
I have friends. I like to get rid of stuff for friends sometimes. I teach Sunday school and little classes at church, so I end up using a lot of my stuff in classes too because we can go through a lot of supplies, so that's a good way. But if you're not interested in that, there's a lot of de-stash groups on Facebook where you can do some trading, which is super cool. So, if you don't have a lot of money to spend, but you got some product that somebody else might need, check out a Facebook group and see if maybe there's something you can trade and get something in return that you can use. So I know, Melody, do you know any group names? I don't know any names off the top of my head, but I do know those are out there.
No. I think search Facebook for swap group.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some that will swap things where you don't have to buy or sell, but trade or.
Yeah, that's always good. Well, Lindsay, it was a joy to have you on the show today. We appreciate you coming so much. We'll make sure we put links to everything below in the description, including that giveaway. Don't miss us next time. 2 weeks from today, we have the Crafty Chica come on. Kathy Chica. It's going to be super cool. We're going to learn a lot about her. She might even be a new person for a lot of our YouTube friends. She is an author, an artist. It's going to be a lot of fun to meet with her. Melody, am I forgetting anything before we say goodbye?
To check out our website, ThisCraftyLifeLIVE.com, all the links, and that's where you'll enter for the giveaway.
Very good.
And our Facebook group. In our Facebook group, we announce the people coming on. We let you help us come up with questions for the people coming on to the show. So just search This Crafty Life Live on Facebook.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you being here today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of This Crafty Life Live. And until next time, talk to you later. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.